sleep in the newborn stage is arguably probably one of the toughest parts. Like, if your baby's sleeping through the night, you aren't living the same life. But it's very common for newborns to wake frequently. So in this video, I want to go through some ways in which to help prepare you. And I would say section 2 is highly underestimated, but I also give some tips at the end. Now, if you're new here, then hi, I'm Lottie. I'm a first-time mum who felt completely overwhelmed because, as you're probably realizing, motherhood is a bit of a minefield. So I break down all things motherhood, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video today. So this first section, I want to go through what the newborn nights are really like to help prepare you. So it is really common for newborns to wake every few hours, and that's mainly because their tummies are really tiny to start with, which if you're breastfeeding is why you have colostrum, which is the highly concentrated milk. But there are obviously a couple of reasons why this is the case. For example, not falling in too deep of a sleep is also a protective mechanism for baby, and they're still getting used to being outside of the womb. So as I mentioned, babies' tummies are really small to start with, which is why you might experience that your baby is wanting to feed really frequently. This is known as cluster feeding. And cluster feeding is basically when the baby is feeding more frequently in a short period of time, and this could be every half an hour, this could be 5 minutes after you just finished feeding. So if your baby is getting really upset and fussy during the night, it might be because of this. Now you might be wondering, well, how long is this going to last? And probably something you'll be Googling at 3 in the morning. And this can last a couple of weeks, it could last a couple of days. It normally shows and is a sign of a growth spurt, which you do tend to have, or baby tends to have a couple of growth spurts at certain periods. So I would suggest looking into what periods these growth spurts happen, so it's not a complete mystery why your baby's suddenly feeding loads. You might also find that your baby is just having a wake window in the middle of the night, which is not ideal, and babies can sleep up to 18 hours a day. So if you find that they're awake during the night, that is not ideal, but they are still developing their circadian rhythm, and this doesn't fully form until 2-3 months, which can lead to something called split nights, where they have their wake windows at night. Now, one thing that I did to help my baby get used to what is day and night is during his daytime naps, we didn't close any curtains. He was always in the room with us. I wouldn't try and be quiet. We would do the Hoover, we would put a blender on. I would just live my normal life, not trying to be quiet, and he would sleep next to me during that time. Like I mentioned, I'd keep the lights on. So when it came to night, that's when it would be a lot more quiet and would have darkness as well. I do think this really helped. So that's a little tip on trying to train your baby to know day and night. Also, something to be prepared for is that newborns make a lot of noise. It can literally sound like you're sleeping next to like a warthog, which no one really prepared me for, of just how noisy they can be. And there are kind of 2 reasons why this can be. So the first one is that babies have or go through something called active sleep. I mean, we all do, but when they're in active sleep, they can make a lot of noises. They can even cry as well. So if your baby does make a little bit of cry, they could actually just be asleep. They'll be moving and fidgeting. And sometimes if you wake up because they are moving around, if you just wait a second to see if they'll go back to sleep, because sometimes it could be active sleep. The second thing is that your baby could be congested, particularly if you are having a baby during the winter sort of months. Babies have really small nasal passages, so they can get congested really easily. I used saline drops, and I would put a few drops into their nose and then use a nasal aspirator or a snot sucker and suck the snot out of the nose to help with the congestion. And that is definitely something that I'll do and have ready with my next one, because yeah, the saline drops saved me. If you're finding that your baby is just not sleeping, what I would do is sort of run through some of the criteria. So I'd make sure, is their nappy changed? Are they fed? Have they been burped? I'll go through all those things first, just to try and tick off anything on the list. But it is completely normal for your baby not to sleep. And I don't want you to try and feel like your baby should be doing anything. For me, I tried to really change my perspective during this time and focus on not trying to fix it and try and get him to sleep throughout the night, because otherwise you're putting a lot of pressure and expectations on yourself. I just focused on this time that it was normal. This is what's going to happen, and this time will pass. It's obviously really easier said than done, but I do want to remind you that this is really just a short period. During this time, it will pass, so it really is just trying to get through these periods and these nights as best as you possibly can. So this section is one of the sections that I think is highly underestimated, and I've spoken to a lot of mums who, one of the reasons why they found the newborn night shifts extremely difficult was because them and their partner hadn't discussed what it would look like for them before the baby came. So I truly think it is so important for you and your partner to discuss what your expectations are of the night. Are you both going to get up and help the baby? Are you going to tag team? Are you going to take it in turns to feed the baby? I would highly suggest discussing what it would look like. So if you're in the night feeding baby, you're not going to feel as much resentment for your partner if you know that's what you'd previously discussed and agreed. I would also suggest talking to your partner about if there comes to a point that you're like, I really need some help, what will that then look like? So for me and my partner, I was breastfeeding, so there was no point really him waking throughout the night because he can't feed the baby. So I thought for us, it's better for him to get enough night's sleep so we're not both tired. But obviously it can still be really difficult because the baby did wake up and sometimes I couldn't settle him. So during those times, if that came to the point and I couldn't do it, we also agreed that I could go and ask for help during that time. But that was something we agreed on, so if that did happen, he wasn't surprised. But whatever you decide and choose, I just want you to remember that you are a team during this. What works for you during these night shifts and during this newborn stage will be and can look completely different to someone else. Don't be influenced by what they say because this is your relationship and what works for you. They don't have a lot of context to your relationship. So some things that me and my partner did, other people might think it's a bit weird, but that's what works for us and that's how we did it. Don't try and put other people's routines and expectations on your relationship because it's just not going to work. I did actually just want to include in this section is that some routines that I've seen other parents do is that if the mum goes to bed slightly earlier and then the baby will stay with the partner and the partner will do the last feed just before bed, and when the partner comes to bed they'll take the baby with them. So it just means that mum gets a little bit extra sleep because like I said, babies can be really noisy. So it just means you get a little bit of sleep before the baby comes in. It is really just finding what works for you guys. So this section, I would just want to go over now 6 tips on how to survive the newborn nights. So tip number 1 is feed the baby after the nappy change, because when you change baby's nappy, it can stimulate baby and obviously feeding them can help soothe them. So this works whether you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding. If you're breastfeeding, then offer the breast again after you change the nappy. If you're bottle feeding, I would suggest leaving just a small amount in the bottle. So once you have changed the nappy, you can then give them a bit more of the bottle as well. Tip number 2 is while you're feeding them, you can place either a blanket or a hot water bottle down in the cot or crib while you're feeding them, just to keep the bed warm. So when you do go to place baby down again afterwards, the bed is nice and toasty for them. But it is important that you don't keep this in the cot because for safe sleep, you want the cot to be completely bare. You might find that this doesn't really work for you, but for some babies it can. So I'm keeping this in just in case, so you can try out these tips and find what works for you. Number 3 is if you are bottle feeding, then to pre-make the bottles before bed so you're not making a bottle at 3 a.m. in the morning. You can also get, if you are formula feeding, and just to make things a bit easier as well, if you wanted to, you can get pre-made formula bottles as well. These are a little bit more expensive though, but again, kind of pick your battles, I guess. So number 4 is that if the baby is crying, you might have a colicky baby, or if lots of your baby just won't settle, what you can do is get headphones which are noise cancelling just to help calm you while you're also trying to attend to your baby, because you and baby don't want to be both crying in the middle of the night. So having headphones can just help relax you, because then you can then attend to your baby. It's not a bad thing at all to keep the headphones on. It's just so that you can stay calm while then you're being there for your baby as well. Number 5 is get all your supplies ready by the bedside, because the last thing you want to do is trying to find the bottle, your nursing bra, your muslin, anything like that. Have everything ready by the bedside just so it saves you getting up as much. I think I remember there was one point that I had to pump in the middle of the night and I completely forgot about putting the pump there. So I had to get out, go grab my pump, to literally leave my warm bed. But that was my fault, I forgot to put it by the side of my bed. And don't forget water. If you're breastfeeding, you can get extremely thirsty and hungry as well. So snacks. So number 6 is, I kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but if you aren't sharing the night shifts because you're breastfeeding, for example, you can still get a little bit more sleep. So if you are going to go to bed a bit earlier, leave baby with dad and then he can, or your partner, and he can bring the baby in later, or if the baby is hungry, because babies, like I said, make a lot of noise. And so if you can just get a little bit more sleep when the baby's not next to you, that would be great. Now, I'm not really sure if this is a tip or not, so maybe a bonus tip, but even if you do not plan on bed sharing, I think it is super important that you look into how to reduce the risks if you do end up bed sharing or co-sleeping. There was a study done by the Lullaby Trust to say that 9 out of 10 parents who ended up co-sleeping, specifically bed sharing, didn't plan to. And for a lot of parents, if they are heavily sleep deprived, and it's so easy for you to fall asleep with baby, so a lot of parents end up co-sleeping because that's what your baby wants. And if you don't know how to do it more safely, this can really put a massive risk for your child. So even though it is said that the safest place for your baby is in their cot, alone, on their back, this is still something to look into in case you accidentally end up doing it. I see it as your seatbelt. So by looking into how to co-sleep more safely, it reduces your risk, just like a seatbelt. You don't wear a seatbelt planning on getting into a crash, but you wear it as a precaution. So that would be, I guess, my bonus tip or advice, is to still look into this if it came to it. So that is everything. I sort of went through kind of what to expect a little bit on what to expect in the newborn nights, just so you're not Googling some of these questions at 3 a.m. Also went through about the importance of communicating your expectations with your partner. And then I went through some tips on how to actually survive as well during this time. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love for you to like and subscribe and follow along. I make videos all about motherhood, so I hope to see you in some of my other videos. Bye.